walls come down, when the walls come down, when the walls come down.
Do you want to go?
I wanna see him fall.
All right, the vigil is just getting started for the shooting that took place last night around 1 a.m. People have been handing out candles and flowers, and extremely somber for sure. And the mayor just arrived on the stage, so we're just waiting for it to get started.
When the walls come down,
Governor Mike DeWine is also on the stage as well. I wonder if we could get this a little bit.
when the walls come down,
There's Tim Ryan. Tim Ryan's on the stage.
Yep, should be starting any minute now.
you tore up my home, and you threw it away. The western girl, eastern night, took a wrong turn and found some pride away. Now there's nothing in the whole way.
We've spoken with many witnesses. I overheard a woman say that actually someone she's related to was about to go into the bar that night, and then last night she just happened to leave early, so she didn't end up being involved in the shooting. So lots of happy stories, but still such a sad tragedy. We also spoke with someone whose cousin tragically died in the shooting last night, and he tells me that he was around 32 years old. Just extremely tragic and really hard to be here, but so many incredible law enforcement and officers that saved so many lives, and everyone really is coming together. I did overhear a few people say that this street really is like its own family, its own community. All the businesses work a lot together, so really heartbreaking to see like what they went through, but they're all coming together, handing out flowers and candles. I saw a woman hand over a rose to a police officer, and lots of tears and hugs and emotion for such a powerful and tragic event that happened last night. A lot of people are also holding up signs and kind of protesting, sort of against weapons and everything that's kind of all the mass shootings going on. Of course, this happens just not even 24 hours after the shooting that happened in El Paso.
I'm so glad all of you could come out tonight. The grieving process is very difficult, but this, as bad as it seems, this will bring us more together, and Dayton will be stronger. I'd like to first introduce myself. My name's Gary McCall. My stage name is Cash McCall. I've sang right over there, Blind Bob's. Okay. I would like to honor the veterans. Any veterans in here tonight? Hold your hands up. Hold them high. We're so proud of you. You keep us free. I want to thank all the police officers, the sheriffs, the deputies, all the firefighters, all the paramedics that keep us safe. You're a very energetic crowd. That's the first step in healing. I brought the white doves tonight. I found it to be compelling to start the grieving process and end it. I brought 10 white doves, one representing all the people that survived. The other 9 represents all the people we lost. I'm going to release the first one now. And if you want to film, get your cameras ready. This one represents all the people that survived. And this, kind of watch yourselves because they might get wild. But these 9 represent the people we lost. And I want you to cheer for them.
Yes.
I'm going to tell you a short story. The white dove symbolizes and represents faith, hope, and love. I'm going to tell you a little short story here. Noah was on the ark for days and days. I think it was 40 days, 40 nights. I think I'm right on that. But anyway, I'm sure when all that you see is water and water and water, he's thinking, what can I do to see if there's land, if the water has went down? I'm sure he was praying. I'm sure he had faith, hope, and love that the water would go away. He sent a white dove out, and a little while later, the white dove came home to the ark and had a green leaf in its mouth. Can you just imagine how happy he was to see that white dove? Anyway, that's all I have to say. I'd like to introduce a singer, Felita LaRock will be entertaining you. Thank you so much for coming out, and I'll give her the stage.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. Through many dangerous toils and snares, I have already come. 'Twas grace that brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me, like me. I was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
Hi, everybody, and thank you for coming out today. And I'm sorry we all had to be here, obviously. We've got quite a few people speaking here today to share a few words. First, my name is Kyle Babarad. I'm president of the Oregon District Business Association and a resident of the neighborhood here and a business owner in the Oregon District. We'll have a few words later now, but first we're going to start with a prayer offered here by a few of our guests.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Karen Bodney Hallis, and I serve as the senior rabbi at Temple Israel. And on behalf of our community, we offer the following words of prayer, of strength, of healing. We stand in grief with the devastated families in our community. We weep over the incomprehensible loss of life. We cry out with shock, confusion, and pain. We mourn together over the senseless act of violence in our community. Be with us, God, in this time of sorrow and fear. Help us, O God, to offer comfort to those whose hearts are shattered. Rekindle hope and trust and courage within us and them. Help us, God, to sustain our belief in the promise that even in the darkest times, even when we feel most discouraged, there is reason to trust that love is never extinguished and that light and spirit will prevail. Help us, O God, to rededicate ourselves to building a world that is safer for our children. Help us, O God, to rededicate ourselves to building a world that is safer for all people. During these difficult days and nights, God, bring comfort and peace and hope and light to broken hearts and a broken world. May the one who causes peace to reign in the high heavens let peace descend on us and on all the world. And together, please say with me, Amen.
Amen. I'm Renard D. Allen Jr., pastor of St. Luke Baptist Church. Please join me as I offer this prayer on our behalf. Sovereign God, we have gathered here
because in your sovereignty, you have permitted inexplicable acts of violence and terror that have fallen upon our city. We come before you honestly, hurting, in pain and agony for the 9 lives that have been lost and the many other lives that have forever been impacted by this terrible, unpardonable deed. We're hurting and in need of healing. And somewhere we have read about a balm in Gilead. And we ask that the balm would not be restricted to Gilead, nor limited to the ancient text about which it has been placed, but that balm would be transported from Gilead to El Paso, from El Paso to Dayton, and to any other area that has been devastated by dangerous deeds and godless acts of violence and terror, where people are hurting, feeling a sense of helpless. Leave us not to feel hopeless. Let that healing balm be experienced by the families first and the citizens and all who are impacted. We come before you not only hurting, but we come before you fighting. And the problem that brings us here today is that too many among us have not learned how to fight life's battles with the right weapons. We are fighting with arsenal. We are fighting with bombs. We're fighting with guns, battles that could be fought with better weapons. So teach us that there is no weapon more powerful than the weapon of love. There's no weapon more strong than the weapon of forgiveness. There is no weapon greater than the weapon of hope. And there is no weapon with a better winning record than the weapon of peace. You are not the author of confusion. You are the author of peace and love and hope and joy. Everything you made, you looked at it and smiled and said, it's good. Help us to treat good good. Help us, oh God, to not fight the battles within us or the battles outside of us with those weapons that destroy life, but help us to learn how to use the weapons that give life, that build life, that protect life, that sustain life, that inspire life, that draws life, that helps life, that aids life, that gives life, that helps life, that builds life, that protects life. Help us, oh God, to have a mind that if we cannot get certified to pack a 357 Magnum, you will certify us to pack love. Yes. You will certify us to pack peace. You will certify us to pack understanding. And as we go into the battlefields in our mind and in our streets, may we be delivered from the sense of hopelessness that leads us to fight with the wrong weapons, because we're hurting, we're fighting. But as I close, God, the fact that these many people are here today is because in the midst of our hurting and in the midst of our fighting, we're yet believing. We're believing that Dayton can be stronger. We're believing that Dayton will be stronger. We're believing that whites and blacks and people of all races can be united. We're believing. We're believing that every time the rain falls, the grass will grow. We're believing that behind the dark clouds, the sun is still shining. We're believing that bad days will not outweigh good days, that good will reign in the earth, evil will not prevail. We're fighting, we're hurting, but we declare by the thousands today that we yet believe. And we not only believe in you, but we believe in our nation. And so we dare say today, God bless America. Bless her. Bless her in the north. Bless her in the south. Bless her in the east. Bless her in the west. And bless by that gentleman from Galilee. Everybody who believes in the teachings of that Nazarene prophet, Jesus, whom I call the Christ, repeats after me, we're fighting.
We're fighting.
We're hurting.
We're hurting.
But we're believing.
We're believing.
We're believing that things will be better.
We believe that things will be better.
We're believing that we will behave better.
We believe that we will be better.
We're believing that God will give us better.
God will give us better.
We believe.
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 We
We
believe.
believe.
We believe.
Amen.
Amen. I got everybody.
I am representing the Islamic Society of Greater Dayton. Although I'm really pleased that such a great show up, I'm really surprised how many people showed up, but I'm happy. I'm happy to see the numbers, but I'm also in pain because I am standing here and this is deja vu for me. Many, many times I have stood in front of a large crowd and I have talked about my loss, my brother, who I lost in 9/11, Detective Fred Gusson, may God bless his soul. He was Muslim, he was Arab, and he loved his country and he gave his life for it. And God bless you all. But I want to make sure, because I've been doing this for so many years, since 2002 actually, and it's really painful. But I want to make sure at least I get one message out. It's the fact that even though probably half of the crowd is pro-Second Amendment and the other half is against it, let's focus about the issue is not the issue of who's pro and who's against, and let's not be divided based on our political views of who should own a gun and who should own. That's the old trick of divide and conquer. We are bigger than that. We are bigger than that. If we are going to split this crowd right now, who's pro and who's against guns, we're going to have another battle right here. And we're going to have more bloodshed. So let's grow beyond that. Let's grow beyond the deception that this is against you and your neighbor is against you. We are all brothers and sisters, no matter what our political view is. Let's remember that we are united here as descendants of Adam and Eve. So that makes us all brothers and sisters, no matter what color we are or what nation we come from. Let's remember that. People are confused about Islam. There is so much Islamophobia. There is so much confusion about it. Islam teaches hate. Islam teaches... If you want to learn how to cook, you go to a cooking class. You don't go to an engineering class. If you want to know about Islam, just pick up the Quran and read. What does Allah say about this? Allah says in chapter 5, verse 32, and so we have decreed that whosoever, man or woman, kills an innocent soul, unless it is a punishment of a crime or self-defense, then that person have killed all mankind. And whosoever saves one soul, that person have saved all mankind. Because one single soul is all it took for all humanity to begin with. So let's just cherish that thought and remember also our founding father, Thomas Jefferson, who I always like to end with one of his very, very famous quotes. If we don't hang together, we're going to hang separate. God bless you all. Yeah.
I love you, Dayton. I want to recognize some of the folks that are on the stage tonight. They might be your mayor or your state representative, so please hold your applause while I recognize some of the folks that are here. I want to recognize Montgomery County Sheriff Rob Streck, who's here, Montgomery County Treasurer Russ Joseph, State Representative Phil Plummer, Riverside Mayor Bill Flouty, Montgomery County Recorder Brandon McLean, Trotwood Mayor Mary McDonald, and then this amazing city commission that has been amazing all day, the Dayton City Commission, Commissioner Darrell Fairchild, Commissioner Chris Shaw, and Commissioner Jeff Mims. Now there's some other folks on the stage that we'll recognize that will be speaking later. I am so sorry that we are all gathered here tonight, but I am so grateful for the outpouring of support for the victims and their families. The Oregon District is usually a site of celebration, not one of mourning. I know that many of us are hurting right now and are uncertain of where we go from here. We have lots of challenging days ahead. But you know, Dayton is fearless. Fearless. I thought about that as I watched the video of our Dayton police officers running toward the gunman who was carrying. Powerful than their own. I know it may not feel like it right now, but I have seen so much fearlessness from our community in the last 20 hours and in the last several months. We have confronted some of the toughest challenges any city could imagine, and we stood tall in the face of all of them. But everything we faced this year, this one is especially tough. Not only because we lost members of our community, but because honestly, it was avoidable. I spoke with 61 mayors today who called recognizing I had been initiated into the unfortunate fraternity of those who had endured one of these tragedies in their own communities. Something must be done, Dayton. Yes! But we can't be hopeless in the face of inaction in D.C. and in Columbus. We must continue to support one another here at home. As we've endured these horrible times, this community has learned about each other and what is most important to us. People who never would have crossed paths have helped each other in our most painful moments. Dayton has done what Dayton does best. We take care of each other. Nine of our neighbors came to celebrate in the Oregon District last night. And now 9 families are dealing with incredible sorrow. And dozens more families are trying to wrap their heads around the violence that changed the lives of their loved ones forever. The Oregon District is a place full of so much life, like tonight. That is why it is especially painful for it to be the site of such tragic loss. But I have no doubt that tomorrow and the next day and every day after that, it will continue to be a place for us to come together for celebration. Including in celebration and celebrating in the lives that were lost. I am very proud to say that Governor DeWine was one of the first calls that came to me this morning. And he and Mrs. DeWine came right down, came to the scene, have been offering everything today. So please give a Dayton welcome to Ohio Governor Mike DeWine.
Mayor, thank you for the great job that you and your team have been doing. Fran and I grew up in Yellow Springs. We live in Cedarville, so we're here really as neighbors. And of course, as governor, I'm here representing all the people of the state of Ohio. This amazing crowd is just stunning. When I walked up here, when you walk in, you can't see it. When you get up here and then you look back, and for the TV cameras, you can't see it all back that way, but it just goes on and on and on. And I think it's a real testament to the love and the resiliency of this great and wonderful community. We are here tonight because we know that we cannot. We know that we cannot ease the pain of those families. We also know that we want to do something. So what we do tonight by this amazing crowd is to say, Governor, we love you. We care very, very deeply about you. We will do everything that we can. Everything that we can. To tell you that we care. My friend and I, 26 years ago today, lost our daughter. We understand about sudden death. We understand how sad that is. So our heart goes out to the victims. Our heart goes out to the victims' families. We pray for you. This great crowd represents this great community. Letting them know how much we deeply care about them. Thank you very much.
Do something! Do something! Do something!
I just want to remind everyone that this is a I love you all. Remember that this is a vigil tonight. This is a vigil for the people that we've lost. There will be time to take action, but let us come together as a community as we work to heal. We are here to heal tonight. We're going to heal tonight, so I ask you to consider that as we consider the lives that were lost last night, okay? Next, I want to introduce Congressman Mike Turner, whose daughter was actually here last night during the shooting and has been active and coming forward all day today. Please welcome your Congressman Mike Turner.
First, thanking the mayor for bringing us together. We reclaim this space. We are coming together as one. We are a community. We are a community of one. Mayor, thank you for bringing us together. As a community, we mourn our loss. We mourn that evil came here. But more than anything, we are a community of one, and we reclaim this space as ours. No one can take that from us. I want to thank the mayor, and I want to thank the police chief, because last night we all saw the videos. And if they had not made a commitment to the police that were here, not only my daughter, but hundreds of people's lives were at risk. Please let us thank again the mayor and the police chief of the police department. And then our first responders who came to heal. you might join with me in your own way in a very short prayer. Dear God in heaven, Governor of all things that are spiritual, heal, protect, and strengthen our community. Amen. Thank you.
Amen.
Next, I'd like to have another congressman came from Youngstown, Ohio, from the other side of the state to bring his greetings and has been in touch with me all day. Please give a Dayton welcome to Congressman Tim Ryan.
Yay!
I want to bring greetings and love and prayers from Northeast Ohio. My congressional district is Akron and Youngstown, and I know some of our people down in Dayton have actually come from Northeast Ohio. I bring our love, our prayers, our support. Isaiah chapter 4, verses 6 through 8. The voice of the Lord came down and said, "Whom shall I send? Who will go for me?" And I said, "Send me, Lord. I will go." The first responders said, "Send me, Lord. I will go." The leaders of this community have said, "Send me, Lord. I will go." But as we move forward from this day in Dayton, Ohio, and we see what happened in El Paso, and happened in California, and happened at Sandy Hook, and happened at Parkland, we now know that it is time for us to make the change that we want in the United States of America. And as it has been said here on multiple occasions, it will only happen if we come together, if we are not divided, if we are united, no matter how big or powerful the forces are that are trying to divide us. We've only succeeded, we've only solved problems in the United States and in Dayton and in Ohio if we've come together. And as I'm sitting here looking at this crowd, and I know Dayton, I follow when the Flyers get into the tournament, and we're rooting for you. And we're rooting for your comeback, just like we're rooting in Youngstown and Akron for our cities to come back too. But I feel something here tonight in this town, and I'll tell you what it is. You are known in this town for allowing man to take flight. In a small little bicycle shop in Dayton, Ohio, man took flight. And I believe in the United States today that we're ready as a people to come together and to take flight again. And I can't think of a better city to lead us to take flight again than the city of Dayton. Thank you.
Next, please welcome County Commissioner Judy Dodge.
My God, sitting up here, you have no clue how far back, as the governor said, how far back the crowd goes. And I turned around looking at just as thick back here. So thank you so much, all of you, for coming, because we know in your heart this is what you want to do. You want to be here to honor the poor victims that happened. It just was so sad. You know, this has been obviously an incredibly difficult year here in our community. However, as we have each and every time in the past few months, I know that we will combine our resources to get through this challenging time. These shootings have become all too common. And unfortunately, we know it can happen in any community. But when it does, as it did early this morning on this very street, we are left numb. Tonight we offer our thoughts and prayers, but tomorrow we must rally together and help each other to deal with this tragedy. I'm confident, as well as my fellow commissioners, Debbie Lieberman and Carolyn Rice, that the Montgomery County residents, as well as the city of Dayton and all the other communities around here, will respond united as we always do. Thank you.
Do something!
It's enough time for talking. It's time to light the candle. I'm gonna use this one. It's now time to begin lighting the candles. If you guys are in the back and you want to come a little closer, we have a little wiggle room to bring us all together. So if you'd like to begin.
Something like 50 stations are using this right now, so yeah, because they can't use it all.
I don't know what DJ did. It's stored around lighting stuff.
I'll make it bigger then.
Goes like this, for the fear, the minor fall, the major live, the baffled king composed it, hallelujah.
Please sing with me.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. You can pull it down a little bit so
Maybe
it'll
there's
sing from
a
the...
God above, and all I've ever learned from love is how to shoot at someone who outdrew you. Remember when I moved and you, the holy dove, was moving too, in every breath we drew was hallelujah. Sing on the side. Hallelujah. 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 Hallelujah.
Thank you, everybody.
I will now read the names of all those who we have lost, who we mourn this evening. Megan Betts.
Megan Betts.
Louis L. Oglesby.
Louis L. Oglesby. Lois.
Lois L. Oglesby.
Yes.
Saeed Salih.
Saeed Salih.
Derek R. Fudge.
Derek R. Fudge.
Logan Turner.
Logan Turner.
Nicholas P. Coomer.
Nicholas P. Coomer.
Thomas J. McNichols.
Thomas J. McNichols.
Beatrice N. Warren Curtis.
Beatrice N. Warren Curtis.
And Monica E. Brickhouse.
Monica E. Brickhouse.
And now I would ask that we all take a moment of silence to remember these souls who we loved so dearly. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, everybody. Now we're going to have a few words from some of the residents and business owners in the neighborhood. We've got Jason Harrison. He's a business owner in the Oregon District and a resident. Jason.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I think since last night, I know I speak for other people who were out here last night. I've been wanting to do three things: cry, sleep, and eat. And I haven't been able to do any of those yet. Hopefully one of those doesn't happen right now. But I wanted to talk to you about men, because I think it's important for us to grapple with the connective tissue that we've seen across the country. So if you don't mind, I'll read this because this is a part of history now and I want to get it right. It's in the spirit of male loneliness to imagine that someone has to suffer for it. Ohio native Hanif Abdurraqib writes in his book of essays, "They can't kill us until they kill us." I read this line a few years ago and I've always remembered it as a perfect encapsulation of male fragility. The details are still emerging, but what we do know is that a young, obviously angry man with access to a killing machine descended upon our neighborhood last night and made people suffer. I hope what grows in this moment is the courage for us to examine the violent illness with which this country has always suffered. No longer anomalies, these mass shootings are a reflection of who we are and who we have been. It's not good enough for us to say we're better than this, because we haven't been. But we could be. If we had the courage to reimagine what a just and equitable and safe society looked like, if we had the courage to examine the anger of men with the same amount of vigor with which we interrogate immigration and terrorism and people of color protesting justice. Rest in power to those who are no longer with us, peace and strength to the families, and to the injured who must figure out a way to live now. Thank you.
Again, I'm Kyle Babarat. I'm a resident in the neighborhood, and yeah, we're mad. To be honest, I'm sorry we all had to be out here tonight. And in the Oregon District, as a community, we've been working so hard over the years to create a more welcoming, inclusive, and safe community. And I wish we could applaud ourselves, but we know there's a lot to do. And I'm learning today a lot. I'm not a professional at this type of thing. As we become another city, suddenly thrown into this awful situation, that there's really unfortunately little time for our communities to fully articulate our thoughts in the immediate aftermath of this shock, despair, and anguish that these events cause. But I can confidently say that our neighborhood, as a community who wants to do better, truly, are treating this as an act of terrorism. We are being terrorized. That's how we feel.
Yes.
We feel the greater threat to our people has not been neutralized, and we will not start to feel okay until we actually try to disempower the hatred and the violent acts. Real healing cannot start until we've had truth and reconciliation. We're going to be working our best on this. We invite anyone from our city or any other small communities watching us tonight out there who feel the same way to reach out so we can share some actual solutions. Thank you.
Amen.
My name is Brian Eastman, Reverend Brian Eastman, and I'm a pastor of Beaver United Church of Christ in Beaver Creek. But more importantly than that, I'm a resident for this neighborhood for more than a decade now. My wife owns a business here, and I am even an employee sometimes here as well. And so for me, this is my home. And so many people here know that when tragedy comes home, it is so dark and so difficult. And we wonder why. And we are at a loss for words. And so thank you for coming tonight to my home. And everyone here is grateful that all of us can share in our grief and together have a brighter future. And with that said, please join me in a closing prayer. To that which we call most sacred in our lives, this evening. Dear Lord, we come before you, worn out, tired. We have cried until there are no more tears. We are at a loss. Our only friend, it seems, is darkness. We are at a dark night of our soul. And yet we know that after every night, there is a dawn. And although we cannot think of how to continue forward, we will. And Lord, we pray that you are with us, helping us. And not only to help us with our grief, not only to help us with our sorrow, with our loss, with our mourning that will never go away, but to help us be stronger, to help us do the work that is needed, to help us turn away from the idols of hate and violence and turn towards the salvation that is love. 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 For all that is good in this world comes from love.
Love.
May we remember that this night. God, may you bless us all, and may we always be Dayton strong.
Yes!
We're going to do one more song. I just want to say personally thank you for showing me how awesome this city is. I'm not from here, so I believe that this is my city now.
Yeah!
After I'm done with this song, I'm going to kind of jam out for a little bit. As you leave, please be safe and love everybody, okay? I want you guys all to get home safe.
When the night has come and the land is dark and the moon is the only light we'll see. Oh, I won't be afraid. No, I won't be afraid. Just as long as you stand by me. So darling, darling, stand by me. Whoa, stand by me. Oh, stand, won't you stand by me. If the sky that we look upon, oh, should tumble and fall, or the mountains should tumble to the sea. Sing it. I won't cry, no, I won't shed a tear, just as long as you stand by me. Please sing. So darling, darling, stand by me. Whoa, stand by me. Whoa, won't you stand by me. Stand by me. You guys can keep singing. Keep singing. Whoa, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Stand by me. Thank you guys so much for coming. I really appreciate all your love and attention. All these amazing speakers. I hope you all are very safe. You get home very safely. Thank you very much, everybody.